hit start. See what happens. Be rolling. We do a good old refresh on the YouTube. Survey says excellent connection. We are live.
Yeah,
and we've been alive for 14 seconds.
Nice.
Awesome. I don't know if I remember what we had for the intro.
I remember.
Oh, you do?
I got it down. Oh yeah, I got it memorized.
Kick it off, Max.
All right. What is up, everybody? We are calling all nerds, and you answered the call, the beacon in the sky, if you will. We are your friendly neighborhood hosts that talk about everything within the entertainment zeitgeist, and we are so excited to talk about some amazing stuff tonight on 11/25/2024, episode 26.
Oh, man. Did you memorize that?
I did, yeah.
Wow, that is impressive. All right. Well, yep, here you go, folks. Episode 26.
Yeah, wow.
Golly, that's crazy. Oh my gosh.
So, quick rundown for those listening or watching live. We kind of have this broken up into, I'd say, two major sections. We haven't podcasts, I don't know, in like 75 years or something crazy like that. So we have a lot to talk about in our own personal gaming and entertainment worlds. So I assume we're kind of chat about our individual journeys over the last few months, decades, centuries in the gaming and entertainment space. A few of those are going to kind of collide with one another. So we'll maybe like join in with each other on certain topics. And then as you can see in the title of the stream, we're going to kind of talk about some major topics, like as a group, giving consensus about stuff. You're the typical thing that we do on a podcast. Those three being the Game Awards, some new handhelds that are coming out, and our spoiler-free opinion on Arcane Season 2. We will do our absolute best to be as spoiler-free as we can. Peter has not seen the whole thing himself yet. He's pretty close. So we just kind of figured might as well be spoiler-free just in case. I don't know if we accidentally said something we shouldn't have. But yeah, what should we kick it off with? Should we do the handheld stuff? Because I think, Max, you were mentioning it's kind of short and sweet.
Sure, yeah. I think this is something that was really exciting for me as someone who has kind of been deliberating between should I go ahead and get a Steam Deck or should I wait?
Yeah, you've been texting me a lot about it recently.
Yeah, it's something that has really been on my mind lately, especially with, I don't know. I think it'll be a lot easier to play on a handheld on the move than it would be just sitting in front of the TV and playing, especially with the amount of kids we'll have in the house at that point.
Yeah. Max and so 25 kids, by the way.
Yeah, 25 kids. It'll feel like that. We will be outnumbered with 3. But yeah, so it's been something I've been thinking about. We have the Switch. We now have Steam has rolled out their Steam Deck, which has been a huge hit, and I think honestly is won the most amount of goodwill, I would say, over the course of this last year. I think it really blasted into the stratosphere. And a few weeks ago, Microsoft announced that they were planning on releasing a handheld device over the course of the next few years, which is funny because they just released an ad recently that said, like, you could hold up your phone and they'll be like, this is an Xbox. And just kind of like the idea of like every device you own can be an Xbox. And so it's interesting to me that they're going to make like a dedicated handheld when I thought they were moving away from the console space.
Yeah.
And then just today, I believe, was when it was announced. But I read an article on Bloomberg today that Sony came out and stated that they are a few years away from releasing their next handheld, which will kind of be a true successor to the PlayStation Vita and the PSP, and really be like a standalone console that you can play all of your PlayStation games on. And so when I heard that news today, I was like, well, I wonder if I should just wait for that and not get a Steam Deck, because I feel like a lot of my games I would play on PlayStation anyway. And so it would be great to just have, and the only reason I never got the PlayStation Portal is because it's cloud streaming. You have to like stream while your PlayStation is on in your house. And so I was like, well, that's not great. and so that just got me really excited. And then immediately I thought, okay, it's years away. Hopefully by that time, the standard native release would have OLED. Would have, I'm hoping that in a few years' time we'll be closer to being able to do like 4K,
4K and would be
21,
wild.
yeah, like like 2160, frame like performance on like a handheld device. Like it would be
Have they ever
crazy.
had that before?
I don't think so.
No, well, the PS Vita did OLED before OLED was even a thing. I remember that because I had the OLED version and the screen was immaculate, but it was like 720p, in terms of like all of that.
Looks
And
like
so
the ROG Ally is the only one I'm seeing right now that goes to 1080p.
Yeah. I think the Steam Deck, though, goes to 1080 or even 12 something, I think.
Yeah, 1280 by 800. So it's still kind of just like 720.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see how quickly handhelds can keep up with the performance piece of it all.
Yeah.
Especially for newer games. Since even in this PS5, Xbox One era, we still can't seem to get 60 frames a second on just normal frame rates without going to performance mode, which is very interesting. We just still have to, I think, unlock that. But yeah, so I'm thinking of holding off until the PlayStation 1. I'll be interested to see what they decide to build there. But yeah, I just thought it was very interesting how I'm sure Sony and Xbox just saw how successful the Switch has been, how successful the Steam Deck has been, and they're like, oh, okay, we need to get back into the handheld game.
I was just about to say, like, meanwhile, Nintendo is like, Donkey Kong World at Universal Studios.
Yeah.
That's what they're up to.
Hey,
yeah,
they're
I
going to Switch too, so I mean, that's coming soon.
Yeah,
I feel like Xbox's handheld, I would be a little surprised, unless they've already stated it, but I'd be a little surprised if it wasn't just like a streaming handheld, because I know they're all in on the whole like xCloud thing.
Yeah.
Especially like what you were saying, Max, of the idea that like you could just play everything from your phone through like the Xbox app through like high-speed connection and stuff. And you don't need the Xbox on. I don't think. I think there is one version like there's the streaming from your Xbox that obviously requires it to be on, but I think you can also just like play something on your devices, maybe like your iPad or something. I don't know, but anyways, I would be a little surprised if they would make like an actual console like a Steam Deck to download games, unless it's just going to be like an option, but they're going to really just try to like hammer down like, no, you should just do streaming because I mean maybe in like a few years it's going to be better. I'm not really sure. Xbox just doesn't seem like the kind of people to want to make like a traditional handheld like a Switch or a Steam Deck. But maybe they will. I don't know. That would be interesting to see. Same with like Sony. The idea of like where handhelds are going to be at, even just like this time next year, is kind of interesting to me. Like, will we have a Switch 2? Is Nintendo going to try to get in on any of the like cloud streaming stuff? I mean, probably not, but maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. Very much the next handheld, I guess you could say, upgrade will be the Switch 2. They've already stated that they'll announce it before the end of this fiscal year, so they have to announce it before end of February. And so my assumption would be that they announce it probably like January or February of next year, and then it's out by next fall or Christmas time. But I'll be very interested to see like what specs it has, knowing that Nintendo is so far behind when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so
I tell you, if they make it bogus, I'd be so annoyed.
I know it'll be very interesting. And knowing Nintendo, you just never know what to expect with them in terms of what they're building. So
like, I wish that I know it doesn't
built into their controller.
I know it doesn't work this way, but like I wish that the Switch 2 somehow made older games perform better, to where I could finally play like Scarlet and Violet in not a crappy way. Like, it could actually be like 60 frames or
Yeah.
honestly not even 60 frames, just like let the screen not be tearing all the time or
Yeah.
all this other kind of stuff. But I mean,
It'd
I
be
know it just doesn't
interesting.
work that way because I know it's also like how the game is like programmed for the console. But
Yeah, I was gonna
Maybe.
say it'd be interesting to see what the development experience was for the people working on Nintendo games. Like if it's like if they built a better console, would the Pokemon games have better performance?
yeah,
Or, is it the more on the development side? I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
very interesting because a lot of the games that are released on Switch right now from Nintendo, even from their in-house productions, the games are kind of chugging on the system because the
yeah.
system has kind of reached its limits in terms of performance. And so, I think I even read in a review the other day, like for the new Mario and Luigi Brothership game, they were saying this game is like chugging, like this makes me like barely able to move.
Yeah.
That
And
game's chugging for a lot of other reasons too, not just performance.
oh,
That's a weird game.
Luigi!
Oh,
Oh my
Luigi.
god! I
if you
saw
guys have
not
not seen it, watch Donkey's video on it. It is one of the
so
greatest
funny.
Donkey videos to exist.
He's amazing.
All right. Well, that's the handhelds. If you all are interested in it, I will post the Bloomberg article that Max was talking about, as well as the Verge one. They're nothing too crazy. It's more of just one of those things to maybe keep your eye out on and see what comes of it later. But sweet. So next on our list, we have the Game Awards. Specifically, we're going to kind of just focus on the Game of the Year nominees, just because that's the one that's stirring up the most controversy right now, as well as because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. So I don't know if we can talk too much about all the other categories. Maybe at the end, if we have some time, we could try to maybe trail back to some of the other interesting categories. But so for the year of 2024, which is anything from December 1st, right, of 2023 to like November, because I think if a game
Yes,
comes out in December, it doesn't get to count
it doesn't get
towards.
nominated.
Okay,
Yeah,
so this is from December of 23 to like November-ish. So our Game of the Year nominees, we have Astrobot, the full-fledged game that had come out, not just like the little, I don't know, demo thing they had going on. I say demo, it was incredible. But anyways, a game called Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Metaphor Refantasio, and then last but not least, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree. So if any of these games are stirring up any questions, it might be Elden Ring, because Elden Ring got nominated and won Game of the Year. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, it did.
So it
it
won
did
Game
win
of the
it.
Year,
Oh yeah.
and apparently you can now just make an action-packed DLC and get nominated for Game of the Year again, thus netting you 2 Game of the Years for the same game. Well, you could probably tell my opinion. I think that's kind of dumb. I understand the argument that a lot of people are talking about how that Shadow of the Erd Tree, it's a massive game, so much content was put into it, it might as well be a new game. I just like Elden Ring because this is the greatest game I've ever played in my life. I just don't agree, because Elden Ring is the game. I can't go to the store and buy Shadow of the Erd Tree and just play it. I can't go online to my Xbox store or Steam or wherever, buy Shadow of the Erd Tree and just play the game without Elden Ring. You can't even get to the area of Shadow of the Erd Tree without doing a pretty solid grind just to get to it, because it is already end game content to get to the DLC. And that's also just not even brushed by the fact that DLC stands for downloadable content, which is usually tied to a video game. So my opinion is I'm a little perplexed why Shadow of the Erd Tree gets a Game of the Year nomination. It is, sure, it's a video game, but like it's already tied to a game that like won Game of the Year. So like, I don't know, it's not our fault that they knew how to make it really good and they just did it as a DLC, and I don't know, not as a standalone game. I guess they could have, they could have just made it standalone, but they're like, nah, it's just on top of Elden Ring because that makes the most sense. And I played it, and it was really good. It was amazing. It was really, really fun, but I just do not consider it. I don't think it's cool that it got to be able to be put up for Game of the Year, in my opinion. But yeah, we can open the floor with that one.
Yeah, apparently.
Oh, go ahead, Peter. Yeah.
The last time they had something like this happen was for Monster Hunter World's Iceborne.
That was the free Game of the Year?
It was a nomination for Best RPG for the DLC. But of course, the Monster Hunter Worlds was nominated for Game of the Year prior to that when it came out, before there was even a DLC. So why are they doing this? Because I would make the same argument during that case. It's like it's not the same as a whole brand new game. I was looking at it like Final Fantasy being a Game of the Year. It's the second second, or is it second one in the sequence?
Yeah, the second part.
The remakes, yeah. And the game was improved on tons of levels. Of course, it was made off of the same engine, but it's a completely new game, new UIs, new mechanics introduced. There really wasn't any new UI or most of like what the base game had and built off of for Elden Ring was included in Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, and it was great. They did an amazing job, like you said. It was so awesome playing more of that with like new bosses and new areas and new weapons. But there's a lot more to make that makes like a game like something that would be contender for Game of the Year, like the game.
Yeah.
Rather than it being like just the DLC portion of it.
Yeah, it just kind of, for me, makes me think how they really need to rethink what awards are part of the Game Awards in terms of like reformatting the different categories. Like, for me, I feel like this should have, because I do agree with you both. I don't even play Elden Ring, and I know that game is a masterpiece. And so it's like I do think that the DLC should be nominated for something, but like make a category called best expansion of a game or something like that. And like, because there are plenty of games. Yeah, best expansion of the year or something like that. Like because there's plenty of games out there that have expansions released every year. And so it's like you could easily get 5 nominees for that in any given year. And I do believe it deserves to win that. But for me, this seems very simple, where it's like, just get rid of I personally don't see the reason behind having most anticipated game for 2025. It's like, we're not in 2025 yet. Why are we even thinking about those games? We're here at the award ceremony to talk about games from this year. So just remove most anticipated game and make best expansion or something like that. And like that's kind of my thought on it. But I agree. I feel like that really stole the limelight from another game that could potentially have deserved that spot, like Silent Hill 2 or I don't know, like Dragon Age the Veilguard, whatever. Like whatever other game that would be considered like, oh, this was one of the best from this last year. And I agree with all the other nominees for the most part, but that one, I'm just like, this just feels weird. It feels very much like the Game Awards saying, well, From Software released something this last year, so we need to make sure it's nominated for like our biggest award because it's From Software.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How it felt. Yeah.
Yeah. It does not seem that fair to me. It's like almost like, let's bring God of War back into the mix because, it's just a really great game.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of like Elden Ring won this year, so let's like bring it back We know it had a lot of hype around it. I feel like there's definitely like a lot of that, like trying to draw attention into the big Game Award selection title by like saying Elden Ring is back,
So,
see if it
I
wins or
mean,
not.
outside of that, like, what do you guys think could potentially win Game of the Year? Like, do you think it's far and away going to be Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree since it's nominated, or do you think that something else has a shot?
So I've always been skeptical of the Game Awards in general. I don't like any type of award thing, whether it's for video games or whatever, because I think that it gives like a weird skewing on a person's personal experience with a video game. I say that because like if I was to see that like the reviews, like I'm looking at like I have this thing pulled up that's just a Steam dump of just data analytics and stuff, right? And like I see that Black Myth Wukong, it released this year. It's got a 95% approval rating. 1.2 million people, I guess, follow it. Its peak playership was 2.4 million, and there's actively at this moment 10,000 people playing the game, or 9,900 playing this game. To me, though, like that game is just not something that I would like. But like if it wins Game of the Year, it's like, oh man, like that just means it was like incredible and everybody's gonna like it. Then you buy it and then you're like, oh, this game actually isn't for me. And now I feel like I wasted like $60. So right. I don't like. I'm just gonna throw that out there right now. I'm not a big fan, but it makes me wonder like how are they trying to get what it is. So the reason why I talk about this website is right now I am just filtering on peak, highest to lowest of all time. And this is for the year of 2024. And in the number 2 slot, I see Pal World, which I forgot came out January of 2024. It had a peak of 2.1 million. It actively has 1,000 more people on it at this moment, more than Black Myth Wukong. And it's got 500,000 followers. Like, could this have been nominated? Helldivers 2, another game that had like a pretty high rating score. And like, it also has high peak stuff. Like, it's just like, to me, I'm like,
that was this year?
Yeah,
Helldivers 2.
Yeah, February of 2024.
And Elden Ring DLC made it into Game of the Year, but not Helldivers 2.
Or even like Satisfactory. Satisfactory came out in September. It had an amazing review. And sure, it didn't have as many peak, but like it was also getting like 10s across the boards, or at least like high 9.5s. And I don't understand. Cause so it's like the long answer of like, what do I think could be there? I just don't know. Cause I don't understand where they come from of like what makes a game to like, I just see here Game of the Year. This is on the GameAwards.com's website. If you go to the Game of the Year category, it says recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. And I don't know, it just seems kind of vague to me. So I don't really know. Cause like to me, like, I don't know. There's a lot I guess I could say about it. I just feel like that description is vague. Like Metaphor Refantasio, it says best experience across all creative and technical fields. I didn't think that game had like a technical performance that was doing too well. At least like on my PC, I was having issues, and like on the Steam Deck, it was like nice, but it wasn't as good as I was hoping it for it to be. And so I'm like, I had that kind of an experience, but it's still up here. I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard to say. And I don't know what could replace Elden Ring, because I look at this list right now and I'm like, I feel like it's going to be Elden Ring, but I don't even know, like, does your vote actually matter? Do they do it by, like, I know you can vote, but is that actually what determines the winner? Or is it just like some other, like, I don't know. I don't really understand the Game Awards.
Yeah, there's 2 games I'm seeing that I'm like incredibly surprised, like another 2 contenders that could have been in the place of Elden Ring. Not to say that they were like better or worse than the DLC, but just the fact that we were talking about the category not really belonging with the Game of the Year. But Senua's Saga, that was a pretty hyped up game I remember seeing it way back when it was first announced, like the trailer and everything. And
Mhm.
apparently, based on the reviews, it did pretty well this year, but I'm just surprised not to see it on the Game of the Year nominee, as well as the Star Wars Outlaws. Now, I know there was some mixed reviews when it came to Star Wars Outlaws, but that game still had like a certain audience that I remember watching like reviews on, and it really did do some kind of cool things with Star Wars in like an open world sense. Um, so not everyone's got to be a winner on that Game of the Year list, but I'm just surprised there weren't a few of these other bigger contenders.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I forgot like Dragon's Dogma came out, the second Dragon's
Oh
Dogma.
yeah, like
That was a thing.
wow.
Hades 2, like that came out. That was like
The
another
alpha
one.
of that, right?
I'm
Huh?
actually
That was just like the alpha, right, or the beta of that game.
Was it? I thought
yeah, what?
this fully came out
I thought so
Oh,
too.
in like
I think it was early
May.
access.
Oh,
So
early
that
access game. Okay. All right, then I take it
Oh,
back. Yeah, it is
that
still early
would
access.
surprise me if that wasn't on there.
oh yeah, like that would surprise me too.
Yeah, this one
But
will more than likely get on there whenever it's
like you
out.
said with Power World and Helldivers 2, those two alone stun me that they're not considered Game of the Year because those were massively popular. And I mean Helldivers 2 especially. Like that
Yeah,
game
I'm
was
shocked. I am honestly shocked that Helldivers 2 isn't on there over like even Balatro. It's like really? Like
right?
Yeah,
I I'm very
Balatro is an anomaly. That game is
yeah.
wild.
What's funny to me though is that well, and I'll just state this. I'm honestly on the polar opposite side. I love award shows, but more so because I like geeking out and like watching like just the people there and like being able to like kind of get what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of get appreciated for the hard work that they put in for these games. Like, and I know it's not
Yeah.
hitting everyone, but like it's really cool to see people get nominated and like, oh wow, like people thought this was like one of the greatest things of the year. Um, but I'm the same way. Just like with the Oscars, I feel like the Game Awards is a popularity contest. And for me, what the Game of the Year nominees are the games that broke through kind of the zeitgeist of conversation more than any other games this year. Like I see all these games, and the first thing I think is people talked about this all year long, which is surprising because Helldivers was definitely one of those games, and it's not there. But I will just state really quickly, I won't keep on it, but I kind of want Astrobot to win Game of the Year because that game honestly has been incredible. And I know it's more so for well, I'll touch base on it when we get to our other topics, but that game over the last few weeks has really shown to me like, oh, okay, like this is in my experience, like this is the best game I've played
Yeah.
this year. But yeah.
Yeah. I think I would also say well, it's between Astrobot and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for me. I really hope Final Fantasy VII Rebirth wins Game of the Year actually,
I
because
would
I
love
do
that.
believe it was fantastic, like how it expanded upon the first game. It unbelievably quadrupled the size of the game from the first game, but still happened to make it unique and fun and a brand new experience. And it was beautiful. I mean,
Oh, and
I'm sure it'll win a few awards like art direction or something. I would be very surprised if it doesn't. But yeah,
yeah,
Astrobot looks like a drink that you want to just like drink up. The whole game looks so clean.
it's so
Um,
good. It's so
and I would also be totally happy if that won.
Yeah, I'm also like I'm looking at this list. I've played one of these 6 games. So I fall in the category of I play one of these 6 and I don't even want it to win. So I'm like I have zero interest to actually vote because I'm like I
yeah.
didn't play Astrobot. I'm not going to vote on it. Like it's how I also just do voting in general. Like I don't even know what Balatro was until the Game of the Year thing. I'm not going to vote for it. I don't know the PlayStation, so I can't play Final Fantasy VII or Astrobot, so they're not getting my vote. Black Myth
Right.
Wukong, I didn't play it, and I get my vote. I tried Metaphor, but I didn't play it long. I played like an hour, so I can't really speak to it. So yeah, it's interesting, and I just like wonder like how many other people are out there. But that, this is why to me the Game Awards I do think just need like a different categorization of stuff because even like little things like best ongoing game, you're gonna probably have the same 5 games more than
Fortnite.
likely. Yeah, like you're probably gonna see Fortnite on there. Diablo's been on there for a little
Apex.
while. Final Fantasy Online's on there for a little while. I think Destiny 2's been on there for a little bit. I think the only new game on here is Diablo 4 technically because it's, a new game. And then Helldivers 2 is on here. But it's just like you're still going to probably see the same old, or like the best esports team. Like it's going to probably be the same people that appear on that, or like best mobile game is just going to say like the typical ones that have shown up or some random new ones. It just a lot of their categories to me just seem like unnecessarily like bloated. Especially like most anticipated, like what you were saying, Max. It's just kind of like whatever to me wins most anticipated is whatever game people have been talking about for like the last 20 years that finally got a release date. And it's like, so that one's probably going to win. Like this year, Grand Theft Auto 6 is in there. I don't see how Grand Theft Auto 6 wouldn't win most anticipated because it's only been, it's like a meme.
It's no contest. It's like
literally a meme. It's like every comment's like, this came out before Grand Theft Auto 6.
Yeah. And like, I would expect the same for like Silk Song whenever they finally announce like that. It's like, to me, like that should deserve it. And it's even like if not even like Grand Theft Auto 6 is not the game for me, but like I just recognize like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of anticipation about this game for years and years and years. So to me, this just seems like a weird category. Like, how are you going to put Grand Theft Auto 6 against like Monster Hunter Wilds or Death Stranding 2? Well, I don't know. It just seems kind of odd to me. But
I wanted to say, Tyler, real quick, the best RPG. Did you see that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree DLC is in contention with Dragon's Dogma? Like, again, the DLC came over the best RPG category as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Best VR AR? Like, come on, who's actually playing AR and VR?
I know. I wish that doesn't need to be a category.
Oh yeah, and I guess going back, Stalker 2 would not be considered this year, right? Because technically it came out.
No, because it came out last year.
I feel like the cutoff is like December 1st to like 1st of November or something like that. There's a very specific time frame that everything is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the game of the year stuff. Not sure that we really get any comments in these videos, but hey, comment down below on what your ideas are and how you feel about Elden Ring being on the game of the year list. But moving on, we have our final massive topic to talk about, which is the season 2 of Arcane. If you don't know, maybe you haven't been living around in a while, Arcane is the animated TV series that is hosted on Netflix. It's a Netflix original created by Riot, the creators of your lovely favorite games, League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics, Valorant, all those other like random RPGs that they've made. And so this is the second season where you, again, I mean, this isn't a spoiler because this is the second season. So you follow again Jinx, Vi, Caitlyn, as your main protagonist. I think I'm saying that word right. Antagonist and protagonist. I don't know. It doesn't matter. You follow them 3 again, like you did in the first season, plus some other characters that you also followed in the first season. And yeah, so we're going to try to be as spoiler free as we can be on this one. Peter, you want to maybe like take away your first thoughts? Maybe answer, how has your experience with season 2 been compared to your experience with season 1? Have you been liking this one more or less? Why?
Oh yeah, this one is so much more enjoyable. I feel like even the animation is better. Like, I don't know how that's even possible because the first season's animation was so good, but they have so many moments in this season where the animation like cuts off into these crazy like different styles, and I know they kind of did a little bit of that in the first season with like I guess going back, if we can talk about the first season spoilers.
Yeah,
Um,
I say let's talk about first season spoilers. That's totally fine because
okay.
Yeah,
we're talking
it's
about
been
season
out
two
for a few
anyways.
years.
So I mean, if you're
Okay.
listening to this, if you don't want to listen to Arcane stuff, just
Yeah.
don't listen to us right now. Skip ahead. I don't know. Have fun.
Yeah.
Good
So
luck.
like the first season when like Echo and Jinx are fighting and it does that like crazy animation that
Oh,
was totally deviated from like the original and it was so
highlight
cool.
of
Had
season
such a cool impact. They really expand on that in the second season, like in a really cool way, along with the soundtracks, like all of that coming together and like these like epic moments. Like they're really piling on a lot more epic moments in this season than there were in the first season. Because I mean, it was cool having the build up and everything, but now it's like we're just like getting more and more cool, amazing, epic moments um, at like a really good pace. So the pacing's been really cool in this second season. I think the first season was um, a great introduction. It makes sense. It's almost like similar to Final Fantasy. Like the way they introduced the first game, it was like just enough to get you hooked and just really fantastic. But this second season is really like ramping it up in terms of like what's happening, stuff there. Um, I've been it's so cool. I've been enjoying it a lot,
How
and
about you?
it's actually really unexpected, like the direction they went, knowing some of the um some of the characters. So I will say that it's been surprisingly, um, um, it's been surprising, like the twists and turns and stuff like that have happened.
Yeah, Riot is really going off the rip right now and creating new lore. Season two is packed with
Mm,
a ton of new lore. A lot of, we won't say the champions. There are new champions in season two that were not in season one.
mm,
And said champions are getting lore that never existed before Arcane season two. But I might touch on that a little bit more. I have a little bit opposite opinions, but I'll let Max. How about same question to you, Max?
Yeah.
How's your experience with season two compared to season one? Better or worse, and then why?
Oh man, that's hard. I'm very much of the mind. I remember when Arcane season one came out, and you guys got me on it because at first I was like, I don't know anything about League of Legends. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to enjoy
Why
this.
would I
And
like this? Yeah.
yeah, and I tried it, and I fell in love with it. Even, and I feel this way even more so with season two. But the animation style is out of this world. I truly don't know how these people animated this show. Hand drawn, all the different styles that they do in every single episode. It just shows the hard work and dedication. Like this is probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen animated in my entire life. Like outside of like Spider-Man across the universe or like across the Spider-Verse or
mm.
whatever. But I think this matches it. And like it's been reported like this season cost them $250 million to make.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Good thing
like
they're a
it's so
billion-dollar company.
yeah, and so like it's been said that this is the most expensive animated show ever made, and it shows, and you really get the quality with it there. And I mean, I just
Billion
can't
dollar
praise it
company.
enough from it. And I think that the reason why I think Arcane is such a masterpiece of a show for both season one and season two, in my opinion, is it kind of gives you everything you could ever want from any kind of show. It has beautiful
Hmm.
visuals, amazing music, um, great, you know, exciting story where every single character has their own arc, their own development. They're all interconnected in some way, shape, or form. I and there's romance, there's action, there's comedy, it's all there. Like anything you could ever want from a show. Like Ruthie watched the entire second season with me because she was just so interested in what was happening. Like she had no idea who the characters were or like who they were, but like you were invested in Jinx, you were invested in Vi because like you were like, oh, like these people are interesting, they have interesting things to say. And not only that, the script, I feel like the writing for the show was so well done. I felt like a lot of the quotes in the show are beautifully said and scripted. There was like, I think if I had one nitpick, there was like, I can't mention it, but like one thing that I had a slight complaint about in season 2 was kind of this turn for a certain character that seemed to kind of come out of left field for me. I didn't feel like it was quite earned. But other than that, I really don't have any like negative things to say about it. I feel like it was just such a great show. The only thing I am sad about is I'm sure there are many moments in the show that for people that have played League of Legends that know these characters, these champions, was probably a lot more exciting to see. Whereas like for someone like me, like I don't know any of these characters. So like certain characters that maybe showed up that don't have a lot of screen time in the show are more so like an Easter egg for the players. Whereas for me, it's just like, okay, that was just some random Joe Schmo showing up for a minute to like say something. But you know, I think that even with that, even as someone who's never played the games, like I was able to really get invested in the story, and it was just great. I would honestly say it was my favorite show of the year, which I thought The Bear would steal right in a way, but honestly, season 3 of The Bear was kind of a letdown. But like Arcane was, it was great.
Yeah. We actually have Jared in the comments saying that like how they matched the animation style to the current mood in the story, which I definitely agree, and that the animation does add emotional depth. All of which I definitely agree. I would say that my experience for season 2 was a lot better than it was for season 1. I give it a 10 out of 10 for sure. I find a lot more issues, I think, than you guys do, but they don't hinder my overall score. Like I thought the pacing was pretty bad. There's a lot of things that happen in between because they broke it up 1, 2, 3. Those were the first set of episodes, another 3, and then another 3. There's just some stuff that happened in between the segments that I feel like they really missed out on. So I thought they were actually rushing a lot of things personally with the stories and how certain people progressed. I felt like they were trying to get certain characters from season 2, episode 1, like ready for episode 9 very quickly. So I think they could have dragged this season out to make it to be also season 3. That's just my personal opinion. Like I said, I can't say the characters. I think you guys might know who I'm talking. There's just some certain very major characters, and there's certain elements that happen when like I would watch the next 3 and I'd be like, hold on, did we time skip? What happened here? Like I'd get a little lost on what was happening, and that kind of annoyed me.
Totally agree with that. Like,
it didn't hinder my love for it either, but I agree with you 100%, Tyler. I think that I there's something about it that like I wonder if Netflix or whomever was just like, no, like this is too expensive. You get one more season. And they just like, okay, well now we have to bundle all these stories that we were planning on expanding out in like 4 or 5 seasons into one season.
Yeah.
But they still did it better than anyone I've ever seen. But like it was still like, I would agree. It was the pacing was very rushed, especially in the last 3 episodes.
And then the only other thing that I thought was a little not as fun for me, like, well, it's so hard to say. Again, all my issues with it didn't hinder my score or my love for it. It's just stuff that I noticed was like, that's not how I would have done it if I was like the director. But so Peter mentions how they like, in season 1, the epic music in the fight with Echo on the bridge with Jinx, right? That was like the first time they did it, and it was insane, and it was like all that buildup. To me, I feel like Riot kind of saw the reviews, noticed that everybody loved it, so they were just like, all right, we're doubling down on this stuff. We are doing hype music every episode. We're doing like hype animation, hype fights. And I was a little like, okay, well, simmer down a little bit. And I only say that because animation aside, I felt like the music was just so all over the place. And like sometimes it kind of matched the fight, but sometimes it didn't. And I kind of like, I don't know, something about how the Echo fight turned out in season 1 with the music that they chose. Something about it just felt so much more a climax of it, whereas this, it was like, what the climax event is in this season. It's going to be very obvious if you've watched the full thing. It just like, I don't know. There's just a lot. There's just felt like there were so many smaller ones. And I don't know. I kind of wish they would have maybe, you could still have cool epic fight scenes, but I don't know. I think you can come about it in a different way to where it doesn't have to feel like, yeah, we know you guys liked them. Now we're going to put them everywhere. I thought that was a little odd. And then the last thing that I cannot say, because Peter, I don't know if he's gotten there, and it doesn't matter. This is supposed to be spoiler free. There is a specific champion in, which I guess he might know this, but there's a specific champion in League of Legends that I really enjoy, that it's kind of, I don't know, Riot just like totally went off the rip with how this champion's backstory is now. And it's a little weird to me. It's fine. I think it's really cool what they did, but it was just kind of like, I don't know if they had to do that, but that's cool. I mean, that's fine. That was fun. I was still super surprised. And then there were just some characters in the anime that I thought were kind of useless, that could have been. A coworker of mine described it. There is a certain character that is attached to one of the main characters, and this sub character, he describes it as, could have been a puppy and probably wouldn't have changed the plot all that much.
100%, and I already know who it is.
And to an extent, I could see it. I don't think a puppy would have been as loving as this other character would have been, but I know what he's meaning. I know what he means behind that. Again, that's where like the rushness, I feel like they were just like, they got so many like characters that they shoved into this season. And so they were like, yo, we got one episode and we got to get to episode 9 and we made a lot of people. So let's get going. Cause there's certain characters,
they have
they're in one episode and they're gone by another episode. And it's just like, okay, I guess they didn't matter. So all that build-up storyline is just out the window.
It makes me wonder about the future of animated series by League of Legends, because, they have so many other places to work with. And in Arcane, of course, they, since season 1, they've been dealing with Piltover and Zaun, and that's just like such a small part of the entire universe of League of Legends. They have probably over like 3,000 characters.
Anything this animation studio does, I'm invested in. Like I will watch it. I'll just be like,
they really have like a One Piece ahead of them when it comes to League of Legends characters. Like the amount of
there is so much. There are
how many champions are there? Like 200 or something like that?
At least almost 200, if not above 200 at this point.
That's crazy.
Quick.
And that's just
169.
And we only covered what, like 25 of them in the show?
If
that.
Probably way less.
We actually probably created some off of this season. If I had to guess.
Yeah, and so like as they're making more, they have to create new characters too.
Man, that's crazy.
We do have one question in the chat. How did everyone feel about the new Linkin Park song, Heavy is the Crown? What was you guys' opinion of that one? They play it pretty early on. It was a little funny how they like tied it into the anime, but I think the song is pretty good. I enjoyed the song.
It has a good catch to it. I like it. It does, successfully, create that kind of like earworm where you can kind of like hear it over and over, and it's like a classic.
Earworm. I'm going to use that one next time.
Or maybe I wouldn't say classic, but it does kind of give you that vibe of like listening to a Linkin Park song. So they achieved that. Even with the new singer, I listened to some of their other stuff and I just wasn't as big of a fan. So this was more of like it seems like they really put a lot of energy into this one song in terms of like, and getting it to sound and feel like the old Linkin Park. Really surprising how they collaborated with League of Legends on it. And it really seems like they really collaborated on it. Like I almost wonder who like put in more investment into the making of this specific song. Was it more of the band's creativity, or was it like how much influence did Riot have? I would imagine the band probably ultimately had the most creativity, but Riot is also $1 billion company, and they could have.
Yeah, well, Riot did have to at least, because the song was made for the animation. And when you do create a song for something, you have to at least be told, like, you're like told, like, you know, hey, this is like the scene, this is what's happening. Charlie Puth actually has a really cool like discussion about this for when he did this song in one of the Fast and the Furious movies, because he plays the ending song, which is supposed to be like a departing of Paul Walker and Vin Diesel, because Paul Walker had passed away. It is that song. And he was given the prompt of like, imagine what would you just lost your best friend, your brother, like put yourself in that and write a song. I would assume Linkin Park was given something like that of, hey, this is what's happening to this character and this is the place that they're in. Can you write like a song and make it like metal and stuff? Peter and I more than likely probably heard it a lot more than Max, because it was this year's League of Legends World Championship theme song.
Okay.
So they only play it in the anime extremely briefly. It's a very small segment, and it deals with Caitlyn. But I think that's also like Peter and I probably have a little bit more, like the song has kind of been mind-numbingly pumped into our brains as we were watching the League of Legends tournament for like 2 months straight. So we probably heard it a lot.
Yeah, that's the League of Legends style, is to mind-numbingly pump all of their songs into your brain.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I know what scene they played it in, and I felt like it fit. I also just wanted to say
really
real quick,
well, honestly.
Yeah, and I do want to say real quick, just the opening song for the show, and that was. I know it was the same song from the first season, but I liked the vignette of scenes for the opening theme.
Is it you talking about the Imagine Dragons one? Is it that song?
Yeah.
It's like dun, 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 dun,
Gosh,
dun,
yeah,
dun,
that sounds
dun,
grown
dun,
on
dun,
me.
dun.
Imagine Dragons, I have such a they're an interesting crew. For whatever reason, they are like the League of Legends poster children for like making music.
Yeah.
And like, but man, their stuff gets kind of catchy, and every now and then I'm like, I don't like it the year it comes out, but then the year afterwards, I'm like, I kind of like this song. It's pretty good.
I call them like the new age Coldplay.
Yeah, just like, that is so accurate.
That's really accurate. Yeah.
It's like you know exactly what you're getting when you listen to them. But I
found myself like thinking about that song that came out, like thunder and the lightning and the thunder, and I'm like, dude, why am I like wanting to listen to that?
Imagine Dragons.
It was like 3 years after.
They're like a band that when you think of their music, it gives you the one-hit wonder vibe where you're like, what a good song, but like it's the same feeling you would get for like listening to somebody else that just has like a single hit, like Wonderwall, where it's like the one-hit wonder that everybody knows about. But somehow Imagine Dragons has more, but you still equate it all to being like a one-hit wonder. I don't know why. That's how I do it. Like when I think of Thunder, I'm like, what a one-hit wonder, but it's not. It's like a lot, but still.
What a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, exactly. For some reason, they're just a one-hit wonder band in my eyes, and I have no idea why. I feel like that's the most unique thing to ever happen for a band for me.
I wish we got more Pentakill. Like.
Oh gosh, I love. If you don't know what Pentakill is, Max, Pentakill is their metal band that Riot created, and it comprised of like a pretty massive metal, like crew. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it even had like the guy who was from, oh gosh, who does Through the Fire and Flames and all those other songs. Oh my gosh, I can't. I feel so disgraceful.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I just can't think of the name of it.
Dragon Force. Whew.
Yeah,
I think they had Dragon Force's like singer at one point, which was pretty wild. They had like a whole mash of these cool metal people, but that's,
or maybe even guitarists.
Riot.
Did they do like songs in the season?
They just like Riot went on a binge one time where they just decided to make awesome music. So they've created K-pop music, and the people who sing the song are their champions. Same with Pentakill. Pentakill is a band of real people, but like it comprises of Mordekaiser and Yorick, which are champions, and it's like they're the band. To be honest, it's kind of a way to sell skins, but it really works because the music's actually good, so it gets itself backed up. They sell a bunch of they make a lot of money because they probably sell a ton of skins, but it actually is like really good music. So Pentakill is like metal, and the K-pop is K-pop.
The KDA Pop Stars song, like another K-pop band that they made, has 616 million views on YouTube. It came out in like 20. I don't know when it came out, actually. I don't know why.
I'll say that Julie even knew a song from
2018.
KDA, and she has no clue about anything League of Legends. Like, that's how popular their music got.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
500 million is a lot.
Yeah, you should if you get a chance later, like tomorrow or something, you should go to KDA's like Spotify. Just like listen to like kind of browse for like the top songs. You probably would have heard of one of them. It's kind of crazy how like popular it got.
Probably a good band to like run to. It sounds like.
Yeah, it is good. All right, well those are our three massive. I'll say massive. I'm really selling it. Excuse me. Those are our three kind of core topics. Talked about the good old Game of the Year nominees and Elden Ring and how it shouldn't have been. We talked about Arcane Season 2 and the new handhelds to come. So now we're going to kind of pivot into the second portion, using a lot of hand motions for the visual people. We're going to pivot into the second portion of the podcast, which is in a way kind of catching up since the last time that we have had one. Episode 25. I'd have to look. I don't even remember when it was. Episode 25 was 7 months ago. So this portion is us just kind of talking about some major things that are happening in the gaming, or I should just say entertainment space in general. A couple of these topics, we have some like joint things to talk about. And then a couple of them is just kind of us have been playing it. So I'm just going to kind of go from the top of the list. I see that Max has two things that he wants to kind of chat about. A little bit of his experience with Metaphor and Astrobot. So Max, take it away. How have those two games been? I assumed you probably beat them both. If not, how's your experience been and all that good jazz?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I feel like these two games have been the most impactful to me game-wise this year so far, other than Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So another funny kind of connection to the Game of the Year conversation where it's like, oh, I actually really tie into these games a lot because they were all the games I really remember playing the most this year. But I've really enjoyed both. I actually bought both at the same time because they came out right next to each other, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll start with Astrobot. Astrobot is kind of Sony's, I would say, the closest thing they've ever gotten to like a Super Mario 3D platformer, like on that level.
Wow.
And it is honestly a kind of a perfect game in my opinion. Like it's one of those games that as you're playing it, you can't help but just like crack a smile like every 5 minutes. Like it's just so charming, so cute. So like it's a very polished game. The platforming is super fun. It's easy. And I think one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to win a Game of the Year, like I mentioned earlier, is because I feel like it's kind of that perfect game for like a family. It's a game that Ruthie played all the way through. Hudson is halfway through it. Like he's obsessed with Astrobot, and it's really fun to like play it with him and like see him experience it. But I think the thing that I love most about Astrobot is that it is a love letter to everything PlayStation. And that's kind of what Astrobot's theme has always been. It's always just been about, kind of winking at what came before. But this game is like the ultimate experience of that. It really goes from like the PlayStation 1 era all the way up to PlayStation 5, and like you find moments where you're playing in certain situations that are like other really famous games like Ape Escape, God of War, Horizon, Sly Cooper, like things like that, where it's just like every single, like, I know, every single level is like a love letter to one of these games, and it's just so hard not to love it. And it's a long game too. Like, well, I wouldn't say it's long, but like if you take your time with it and you really just kind of, you know, experience everything that it wants to show you, like you can take it can take you 30 hours. Like it's a pretty in-depth experience, and the music's beautiful. It's just super fun. It's just fun all around. It's the word I would use to describe it is just, it's joyful. It's just such a joyful experience. It's just a celebration of video games and a PlayStation. And as someone who is a Sony pony boy, I guess is the term. I don't know.
Sony Pony Boy.
Sony Pony. Add that to your Christmas card.
I know, right? I'm such a PlayStation guy, just because I'm all about those narrative, games. This was the perfect game for me. I thought it was such a joy to play, and I loved playing it with the family. So I can't recommend it enough for anyone that owns a PlayStation. Please buy Astrobot. It's incredible. We need more games like this. We need more like family friendly platformer games. I miss them. I feel like we just don't see them that much anymore.
It's the first game I platinumed, not the new Astrobot, but the thing that came out. Yeah, Playroom.
Yeah,
that was the first thing.
This was very much kind of an expansion off of that. Yeah.
I have to ask, Max, does it have a lot of usage of the controller, like the PlayStation controller?
Yes.
And fun gimmicks like that?
Oh yeah, it makes full use of the DualSense and like the haptic relays and everything like that. Like it's the perfect experience for it, honestly. And
does PlayStation still go in on that whole gimmick anymore? I haven't played I sold my PlayStation a while ago, so I don't.
Yeah,
kind of try to sell it
for their first party games. Yeah, for the first party games, they use the haptics. Yeah, which I mean, I don't mind them. I think they're pretty fun for the most part, but I just don't like the haptics when it like resists the push of the button. I hate that for the triggers. I'm just like, no, just let me push the trigger.
Yeah, I get you.
But yeah, so that was an excellent experience. And I'll move on to Metaphor now.
Okay.
I'm about 3/4 of the way through Metaphor. It's it's an Atlas game. They're all super long.
Yeah.
I'm about 50 hours in. And Metaphor is kind of I guess you could say, the spiritual successor to the Persona series. It's made by the same team that did Persona 3, 4, and 5, all of which are some of my favorite games of all time. And this is just kind of like the natural evolution of gameplay for them to this Metaphor. I will say I don't love the vibe or the even the world of it as much as I love the Persona games. It definitely doesn't hit on that level. But in terms of its story, in terms of its characters and overall theme, I think it's definitely reached a new level that has not been reached by Persona previously. Where the Persona games are very much about kind of the individual growth of the characters, right? Like Persona 3 is all about how do you overcome the process of knowing that you're going to die, or like how do you live your life to the fullest. Persona 4 is very much about being true to who you are and accepting who you are, all the bad and the good of it. And Persona 5 was very much about, how do you resist the apathy and just the corruption of the real world and fight for justice and fight for what's true. This just kind of like takes that to the next scale of like, okay, this is a metaphor of the real world. And what does it mean to
done. That's so cool.
Yeah, like how in a fantasy setting do you make an analogy of what the world should strive to be in an idealistic sense, like from a place of like a utopian sense. And while I don't agree with all of it, I do think it's a very beautiful thing to want, like a peaceful world. And one of the things I love the most about the game that still sticks with me is at the very beginning of the game, there's a narration and it says, "Do you feel like fantasy has the power to change reality?" And that really, I was like barely 5 minutes into the game and made me tear up, because all my life fantasy
Classic
is
Max. I love you, dude.
right. Like fantasy has been my favorite genre because I love how, starting with Lord of the Rings, the themes of fantasy, the ideologies of these fantasy worlds that you can dive into in books or in video games or in movies really kind of change your perception of the real world and who you want to strive to be. And so the fact that that's what the game is about was really touching to me. I will say, now that I'm like over halfway through it and I've seen the gameplay loop, it's not my game of the year. I do still think that Persona 5 is better, but I think that this is a close second, and which still means for me it's a 10 out of 10. Like it's this game is incredible, and I know from what I've heard the end of it is very impactful, so I'm very excited to see how it ends. But yeah, I can't recommend it highly enough.
So do you think Persona 5 did the loop stuff better, is what you're saying?
No, I would say that the loop process is better in Metaphor, but Metaphor has worse dungeons. Like the actual like, dungeon stuff.
Agreed. I did do a couple of them, which I knew were just early on, but I was already kind of getting a vibe of like, nah, not as cool.
It's more, it's more dungeon crawlery.
Yeah.
Which is fine. You know, like
this is a different
I
style.
I honestly enjoy the combat a lot. I love that it's more of like a job-based kind of system, and that you like can learn skills and trade out jobs, and you can
You're very OG Final Fantasy.
Yeah, very OG of Final Fantasy, exactly. Where it's like you can, if you're going up against a boss that's like weak against certain things, you can be like, "Ooh, I'm going to change all of my 4 characters into mages and just blast it with its weakness until it's dead." You know, like it really opens up the ability for you to strategize and be smart with how you play, and you really have to, because the game can be really hard if you're not careful about how you set up your party. And but yeah, I love all the characters. You really kind of grab a character from each individual tribe in the world, which, you know, includes tribes that are very much despised and prejudiced against. And so it's just very interesting how it takes real world themes and puts them in a fantasy setting, with the fantasy setting kind of dreaming for what our real world is, as it's like perfect utopia, which is ironic. But I can't wait to finish it. I can't wait to talk about the end of it with you guys and tell you what I felt about it. But for me, Atlas can really do no wrong. I feel like the teams that do Persona, and they really mastered for me like the perfect kind of loop of gameplay that I enjoy more than anything else. And I think that, you know, it's an amazing game. But I feel like Final Fantasy Rebirth just slightly overcame it. And then Astrobot is definitely my highest at the top.
Very awesome.
I just wanted to mention those games and highly recommend them to anyone that hasn't played them, because they're great. They're incredible games.
We did have a question for you, Max, from Jared in the chat, saying, "What's your thoughts on the PS5 Pro? Do you think it's going to be worth the upgrade?" You being
good question.
The Sony pony.
The Sony pony. I personally do not think it's worth the upgrade. It's $700. It's a lot of money.
What?
I think that's the price. I could be wrong on that.
I'll check real quick.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's $700.
Dang! $699. Goodness gracious.
$699 or $720 with tax or whatever it'll be.
Golly.
I just don't think for like I personally think, Jared, for the minute upgrade that you'll get in terms of frame rate and visuals, because I won't lie and say it won't look better, but I think if you compared both next to each other, you're not going to see that big of a difference. I think if you're someone that's coming into the PlayStation 5 for the first time and you have the money to invest in it, go for it. You know, you'll get the best version of the system. But for me, it's not worth the money to do that kind of incremental upgrade. I'd rather just wait for the PS6, you know, or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, you know, to me, the PS5 Pro kind of felt like, I don't know, like when I look at, I'm a PC guy mainly. I mean, I had all the consoles. I just sold my PS5 just because I stopped using it. Nothing was wrong with it though, but like mainly PC. And to me, going from the PS5 to PS5 Pro kind of felt like you were just getting like, maybe you have a 3070 and then you got like a 3080, or, you know, maybe you had a 3060, you went to 3070, like something along those lines, where it wasn't like you'll have like a performance increase, but not drastically to like justify, hey, I spent 500 on one, now I'm going to spend 800 for an upgrade. Like, I should probably just wait for a 40 or a 50 series. It was kind of, that's kind of the vibe I get from it as well. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think it's very much for like the elite gamers out there that have that kind of the elite. And what I mean by that is that like have the money to invest in just incrementally upgrading like that. Yeah. I do not. But I would say if you are interested and you have the bandwidth to buy it, go for it. Because I mean, I just feel like we're not yet at a place where it's worth the investment for that much of an incremental change.
You really have to be like a really diehard Sony fan, like of the current games that are on PlayStation 5, and like really want to just like experience them at the highest quality for whatever reason. Like the Ratchet and Clank game, you know.
And part of that,
the two others that they've released that are only on. No.
Yeah, and the other thing you have to be mindful of with that is also your TV and what it's capable of. You know, like you may not be able to get the full breadth of what the PS Pro can or PS5 Pro can offer unless you have, say, like an OLED TV or, you know, something to that factor. I don't know. But yeah, that's a great question. But I'll probably pass it up.
All right. Moving on. I think I'm going to take the couple that I have, and then we'll get Peter, and then me and Peter have a couple joint ones to chat about. As I am sitting here contemplating my life of 2024, I'm really questioning if I'm a gamer anymore. I have 0 game of the year for myself. Like, I'm looking at like what's come out this year. I like didn't play anything. I didn't play anything and I finished it, and like I'm like, am I a gamer? Do I actually play video games? There's like, I'm looking literally at a list on Game Rant of all the games that came out, and I have nothing I would say was game of the year, which kind of perfectly ties into why the categories I'm about to talk about are not games at all. So one cool thing that I wanted to talk about is a TV show that I thought was just called Jackal, but it's called The Day of the Jackal. I've had that wrong. It is on Peacock, and it features Eddie Redmayne, which you might be saying, Tyler, who's Eddie Redmayne? Then I would say, well, if you were a fan of the Harry Potter series and watched The Fantastic Beast, it is Newt Scamander himself. Yes, you have the awkward man who played the wizard Newt now playing an epically awesome British assassin who murders politicians for blood money, and it is awesome. It is such a good show. So it's only, I think it's exclusively on Peacock right now. It might go somewhere else. Who knows how that works nowadays. But so he is a elite sniper. He's a master of disguise and a highly trained killer. He's such a good actor, because as I was watching this show, I was like, why do I know this guy? So he looks so familiar. I'm like Googling it. And I'm like, no way, that's the same guy. And yeah, sure enough, the same like kind of awkward dude that plays Newt Scamander is playing this like just insane assassin killer guy, and he has to live this alter ego life where he's married, he's got a kid, but like they don't know what he does, and he's being chased by this woman who works for, I want to say, the CIA, or no, she's also located in London, so she works for, what's the British version of the CIA, the FBI? Oh my gosh.
MI5 or
MI6 maybe?
MI6.
Or is that just from Mission Impossible? I think it might just be Mission Impossible.
It's whatever the association is in the Bond movies. I'm just trying to remember.
So the plot is he murdered someone, a very high level politician. She thinks she knows who it is. She's trying to chase him, and he's trying to just, live his life as an assassin. While this is going, they are the main two characters. They are both facing personal lives, like subplots that are affecting how they are doing their professional life. So she is also married, has a kid, and she is dedicated to her work. She does not spend enough time with her family. They are noticing it, and it is hindering their relationship drastically, to the point where it is hindering her ability to be able to accurately perform professionally. And she is trying to find the balance and the fine line between both being a CIA agent who she also cannot explain her job to her family members, and they have to just deal with her being stressed, not in the moment, always just erratic and just leaving at the any moment, right? And then him being an assassin with a wife and a child who is like 1 year old is also facing the same turmoil. He is someone who is extremely dedicated to his work, and he has to drop at the pin to go do what he needs to do at any moment, which is now facing the same similar issues at home. The wife is questioning. She thinks that he's having an affair. She wants to learn more about what he actually does. And as he's doing his assassin work, he now has to worry about her figuring out what he's doing, because obviously once she knows and she gets in, how do you get her out? It is wild. It is a very, very good show. So if you're into like the action dramas and like spy type shows, and you have Peacock, you should totally watch it. I think surprisingly, Peacock is free to watch with ads. I think you could just make an account and like watch Peacock with like a butt ton of ads. So, have fun with that, but you could do it. It is pretty fun. So that's been like the TV show of the recent that has kind of like piqued my interest.
Nice.
And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about was this random little book that I found when I was on vacation with my wife. It is called The Winds of, I think, Mark, Marque, Mark, Winds of Mark. I think it's Mark. I feel like you would say it like that.
Okay.
This is a book, I think it came out, 2019. There's two of them out right now. It is by Bennett R. Coles, and it is just a fun space pirate book. You just follow a guy who is the sub-commander of a spaceship, pirate ship in a way, and he is always kind of been like, he's the one that does all the work but never gets any of the credit, right? Because he's not the captain. And he has to just rely on that being his like lifestyle. And then there is a second character who he like works with closely, and they like build a relationship. It's kind of like about their connection, where they go. Also just about like a lot of fun like space piratey kind of things. So if you're interested into like sci-fi space pirates, it's a really good book. I still have not finished it, so I don't really want to go too much into plot, because I could say something that it's completely wrong by the end of the book anyways. But it is like really cool. They're essentially like on a secret mission from the Emperor, where they have to just hunt down a pirate threat and find this like pirate ship, and kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean in a way, right? If you've seen that, it's like they're like the British people trying to hunt down the pirates in a way. But there is some plot twists of like maybe who the real bad guy is, and all that kind of fun jazz, which you could probably guess probably what's going to happen anyways. But still, it's a really fun read. It's not that difficult to go by. And I think, like I said, I think there's like two of them out right now, 2 books. This is the first one, The Blackwood and Virtue. I don't know how they call it. Set or something. Yeah, well, it's the name of the characters, and like number 2 is like somebody else. But yeah, it's really good. So it's been a really nice read. I have enjoyed it a lot.
You had me at Space Pirates, so
I know it's so cool. Like, I can't say I've actually read anything about space pirates. I was interested because I really liked the the Disney one, Treasure Island.
Oh, Treasure Planet.
Treasure
Mhm.
Planet. And it kind of gave me those kind of vibes when I was like reading the description on the back of the book, and I was like, ooh, I think I'm gonna like this. And I do.
Tyler-
It's not the it's not the greatest book ever written, but it is really fun. It's a good read.
Yeah.
Did you ever
That's
get
all.
around to reading Red Rising, Tyler?
Red
try to-
Rising. I don't know.
It was another sci-fi book. I might have mentioned it last time I was on the podcast.
Oh,
But it was
that's
kind of about the mining civilization on like a different planet that kind of rose up in rebellion, but also had like a lot of sci-fi elements because they're not on Earth. It's like this whole sci-fi civilization and about conquering and stuff like that. But
yeah, I do remember. I have not gotten to it. The other sci-fi book that I read was Three Body Problem. Holy cow. That book is insane. If I didn't listen to the audio of that, I don't know if I would have like been able to grasp what was happening. You almost need a working knowledge in advanced physics to fully grasp what's happening in Three Body Problem. It was the best experience of my life. I would read something and then I had to go to Reddit to this man, this glorious man who has created his own spark notes for every section of every book. And it helps tremendously understand the entire plot because it's confusing and it's so good. I just, oh man, that was on my list. I took it away, but I'll just talk about it again. Three Body Problem is amazing. The second one, Dark, what was it again, Max? What's the second book?
Oh gosh.
It's like
You put me on the spot. I'll have to
Dark
look.
something.
I'm looking it up right now.
They're just really good. They're talk about some like time skips. Whew. These books are all about time skips. So it's also very helpful when you're kind of like, Dark Forest. That's what it's called.
Dark Forest.
Whenever you're like going through these, it's really good to just kind of like do your research on what's happening. Cause there's so many characters. They're also like typically all named in like Chinese names. And so it could be kind of hard to kind of remember who it is that you're talking about because the names are very closely related as far as like how they sound or like the phonetics of them. So I was constantly just like, who was that again? Who was this? Who was that? I felt like it was Game of Thrones and I was using the index that had like the list of all the houses and everybody who belonged to it and stuff. Three Body Problem is also an incredible book series. I am ready to get on to the third book. I've got the first two. I had to take a break because they're intense. But Death's End is coming, and I'm excited to read that one.
Oh, so good.
And then let's see. The last thing I had to talk about solo is something crazy. It's just about Fortnite real quick. If you are a Fortnite fan, OG Fortnite is coming back on December 5th or maybe December 6th. It's one of those 2 days. OG Fortnite is coming back for all the fans of that. It was released like last year at some point. They said it was going to become a permanent thing and is now going to become a permanent thing come the first week of December, which is really exciting. And then the only other thing I could say to talk about is if you're listening to this podcast and it is not December 1st, you can log into Fortnite from the 25th to the 30th. If you log in, you will then, it's really weird how they're doing it. They're giving away a free Juice WRLD skin. They're doing that in honor of him. Juice WRLD was a huge fan of Fortnite. He has since passed away, but they are still honoring him in this way by giving everybody like a free Juice WRLD skin. But when you log in, you will not get it when you log in. It's the most borked process ever. You have to log in and then log back in the next day. And if you logged in the prior day, it'll remember that you did that and then it'll give you the skin. I think it's only to fluff their like user numbers so that they can get 2 days worth of people logging in just to get free stuff. But I digress. That is what you have to do. So if it is not December 1st and you're able to log in, I think it's like before 10 p.m. on November 30th. I don't know, somehow you get logged in their system and they'll give you your free skin the following day. It's stupid, but it's fun because Juice World was an amazing rapper, and it's kind of fun to, I don't know, that Fortnite is honoring him. They're going to have a huge concert that features him in it. If you kind of follow the Juice World scene, his family has been like slowly releasing his songs ever since he has passed away, and I think the last bit of them are coming out now. So I assume that the concert in Fortnite's going to kind of handle with that. So it's kind of cool. It's a pretty cool thing to see video games honor the others in it, you know, and like do things to kind of represent, I'll say, the people, so to speak, of their game.
Yeah.
It is kind of cool. World of Warcraft also did something similar, where they actually have an item in their game that honors a player who was very physically handicapped, and kind of World of Warcraft was his escape. And he died at a really young age, but they have recently made a pet in the game that you can buy that features, it's like a fox pet. That was like his nickname was Fox in a different language. I forgot where he was from. But if you buy it, all proceeds go to this foundation that are raising money in honor of like the disability that he had. So it's kind of cool. I've been actually noticing that a couple times recently in the gaming world, where the massive corporations are trying to give back. Whether it's just for the publicity, it's still nice to see. And I like to just take things as they are, right?
Nice.
Yeah. So that were the only solo topics I had. So we can move on to good old Peach, which it looks like outside of a couple that me and him have together, I think Monster Hunter Wilds was the only one that you kind of wanted to talk about solo. So what about Monster Hunter Wilds, outside of the fact that it's probably going to be an incredible game that's going to consume countless amounts of hours of ourselves? What would you like to talk about on that?
Yeah. Yeah, for real. I believe, like, first of all, I guess, like, some of the other things I've been up to this year were really just, also not, like, a whole lot of games, like, other than World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy at the beginning of the year. I think that's the one that really took up a lot of my time. And then outside of that, I've just been more recently watching a lot of One Piece. And so, you know, that's been around for a long time. If you don't know what One Piece is, you know, it's
Get on it.
Get on
Yeah,
it.
if you don't know what One Piece is, man, I bought G Fuel related to One Piece.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I'm, you know, watching it for the first time, just going through like the original episodes. I don't know, they might have remade them by now in different formats, and they have the live action, but I'm watching the just the OG stuff, and it's really fun. Nice little passive thing to do. Monster Hunter Wilds, that game has been on my radar because I feel like it's been a while since I've gotten back into like a multiplayer type action game. I feel like the combat is what I'm really craving right now because you get to, you know, they're bringing back all the weapons from every single entry. They usually have like the same type of weapons, but this game in particular is the sequel to Monster Hunter Worlds. So that was like their first big open world type title. I don't think it was officially an open world game, but it was like trying to be that like open area type game, and AAA, and like in their introduction to like I believe like one of the big consoles, because before that most Monster Hunter games came out on handhelds, or a lot of them have
DS.
been on handhelds in the past. And so it was like this really cool thing seeing how they brought Monster Hunter to the big screen in a way. And Monster Hunter Worlds was really great. Monster Hunter Wilds is pretty much expanding on that. It has everything that I can see the Monster Hunter Worlds did. Kind of like the uniqueness of going into a an open area, and it's all about, you're like a hunter essentially, and you're just set off to explore, kind of like as almost like a safari person, just going into these like random undocumented areas of monsters and animals, and there happens to be apex predators in the area, and a lot of those are like these crazy mystical giant creatures, and you're just this like small hunter with big stick. Or you start with, basic gear, but then you kind of like get these overpowered, crazy weapons that do all sorts of different things and mechanics. Um, it's really like I only played Devil May Cry like very briefly when you recommended it to me that one time, Max, or maybe let me try it. And it was
Devil May Cry.
yeah, I tried like and the combat in that it's crazy. So I wouldn't say it's like the combat in Monster Hunter isn't necessarily like Devil May Cry, but it's also not like it's got its own unique charm in the fact that it's crazy. You can kind of like do all these sorts of movements with your weapons and all these different types of like flips and grabbing onto things, and that's kind of like the charm for me is how much you can interact in the fights. They make it so that whatever you're hunting, like whatever monster you're fighting against, has all these different weak spots, and you can even there's a new focus mode they added, apparently, a new mechanic where you can sort of slow things down, apparently. So like typically in these fights, you're kind of just like you're rolling around, kind of like Dark Souls. Like you kind of look like you're just you're constantly rolling to dodge all these different types of attacks. But there's this new focus mode that can kind of like slow things down when a monster might be coming at you in an epic way, and you can like really focus in on like a weak spot or something like that, and it'll highlight it for you. So I'm kind of interested to try that. Outside of that, there hasn't been many other changes, other than the graphics and the new updates to their multiplayer system from what was in the Monster Hunter Worlds was pretty bad. Me and Tyler got to try it a little bit, and it was just the whole part how you had to finish the whole storyline before you were able to actually
We had to
play
always
with
be
your friend.
you need to be one step ahead. So I
Yeah.
could only play with Peter. Like I could queue up a mission to be multiplayer, but only with
Right.
people who had beaten that mission. So we could never both experience the game's like
At the same time.
freshness together. It was always like, all right,
Yeah.
Peter's backtracking to play with me. Like he's seen the cool monster, but I hadn't. Then there was no, that just stayed that way. Cause like we were always like, I was always like a step or two behind him. So that kind of stunk because it was like he saw the cool epic end game bosses always before
Yeah.
me. So then if Peter joined me, like I was like, wow, this is cool. And Peter was like, wow, it's cool that you like that this is cool. It wasn't like the same us going through it for the first time. So that was kind of lame.
And I
Yeah.
will say, from what I'm looking up or what I've been researching, they have kind of updated. Like one of the things that was even more annoying than that was that you had to always watch the cutscenes, and they were unskippable, even if you've already seen them before when going on a certain mission.
Yeah.
And apparently they removed that because there's a lot of people that complained about that.
Well,
But
yeah.
the I think from what I'm seeing, I haven't been able to collect all the data from like people who tried the beta. But the whole multiplayer thing, it looks like you might have to finish like you finish like all of the tutorial. That's like a requirement before you can play with your friends. And then you have to play through some of the like introduction combat zones and stuff like that. But then when it comes to going on missions, it says that there is some kind of requirement supposedly where you have to see the apex predator of that specific zone before you can go out with your friends. Like they also have to have seen like that apex predator. So I'm wondering, is that the same
So
thing that
weird.
happened that happened in Monster Hunter Worlds, where like you said, I don't want to know what that like reveal is like. I want to experience that with my friends. So that could be
Yeah.
like kind of a disappointment again, like if they make it again like this weird, like hard requirement where you have to experience like a little bit of the game and the spoilers before you can like have that fresh experience with your friends. Like that's kind of what I want. But you know, everything else, like the worlds look really awesome. Like one of the opening starting zones is this giant desert, and apparently they're introducing a season system. In the previous game, they had like all these different open worlds or opens areas, but their expansion was like adding a new area that was like in a completely different season, like Iceborne, and it was all cold and everything.
Oh,
This time in this game, they're gonna have like your open area, but then it's going to change like based on the season you're in,
okay.
and all the enemies will also like change and adapt. You know, more animalistic. You know, they're adding a lot more like um, uniqueness to like um, you know how hunting would be in real life, but with these mystical fantasy creatures. You know,
Yeah.
things might change based on like what you might be hunting something different based on the season, and then seeing all the environments and stuff like that change too. Like I'm sure like there'll be different areas to explore and little like caves to find that only show up in the winter versus the summer or something like that. Or I'm really excited for that. So everything in the game's really dynamic, um, and
It's supposed to be
the
open world
combat.
too. Like there is no
Yeah.
more like loading
Zones or
screens between
yeah.
the zones.
Oh, that'll be really
Very
good.
cool.
Yeah. Traditional Monster Hunter is like Outer Worlds was. So you would like load up into a specific map. Obviously Monster Hunter like a lot more depth than Outer Worlds, but that's how it was. You queue up for a map and you would go explore and kill big stuff with your big weapon. That's like the traditional sense. Yeah,
Big
I am
stick.
excited. I'm excited for that one too. That should be really good.
I gotta
Um,
say,
oh,
I
yeah.
definitely hope to use um, like some of the charge hammers and just do like one of those focus attacks and try to get like a really cool like movie like cinematic attack on some giant dragon flying through the air. Like I've seen these clips online of people that have like made a Monster Hunter worlds look almost like a movie when they like time their attack just right, and then like the dragons flying at them at like 60
Wow,
FPS or
great.
whatever, and like 8K, and then you see it's like fangs and everything, and they just smack it in the face with this giant hammer, and it's just like it like flails and like falls out of the sky, and it's just so epic. It's stuff
Oh,
like that that I'm really looking forward to in Monster Hunter Wilds.
nice.
Yeah, I've always said that Monster Hunter is kind of like that no BS kind of fighting game where it just cuts all the mononical. How do you say it?
Um,
The
Monotonous.
monotonous
monotonous.
like grind of just trash mobs, and it's just like boss fight after boss fight after boss fight, and it's so much
Yeah.
fun. It's just like action packed. It's great.
Oh yeah, and then the last thing is that it makes me think of like how comparatively to for Elden Ring, when you're playing like a game like a FromSoft game and their combat, um, and it's like I think of like you're kind of this weak person with these crazy weapons, and your attack speed is like kind of that of an average man, but you're doing like crazy damage sometimes with it, and and then you're going against these bosses that have like these, they basically go at like at Goku Super Saiyan speed, like all around you, and you just feel like pathetic until you actually manage to win. In in Monster Hunter, you feel like this that you're strong and and your weapons are strong, and you're putting up a fight against this equally strong and kind of intelligent opponent, and like every hit, like my favorite thing about it is everything that you hit on a boss like feels like something. It's not just like you're randomly slashing his leg and then oh it doesn't matter because his hitbox is also his arm, so I'm gonna go slash that too. It's like everything on the monster in these games means something different. Like you can injure their arms and they'll be like crawling, cut their tails off, and all sorts of things like that.
Nice.
All right. Well, I think I'm actually gonna have to close this out here. We're coming up at 9:30, which I know Peter has a stop at 9:30. I'm just generally tired, so I could probably hop off here soon. I gotta get this episode uploaded. So Peter and I don't think we're gonna be able to touch on the other stuff. I'll just say it like Peter and I have also been playing World of Warcraft over the last few months. Black Ops 6. Pokemon TCG Pocket, which is a mobile game. And then we're going to be playing come this Wednesday, the 27th of November. We're going to be playing Old School RuneScape Leagues 5. I think it's called like Raging Echoes. Can't really dive into that too much tonight, though. We're hitting the hour 40 on our podcast. But those are just some additional games that Peter and I are playing. I think I speak for him when I say download Pokemon TCG Pocket right now. If you're not doing it literally at this second, just do it anyways. It's addictingly fun, and it is similar to Marvel Snap, where it gives you a bunch of free stuff and you don't even have to spend any money. It is awesome. Yeah, so I think that might do it for episode 26. I don't know if you guys have any closing remarks before we close it out or not.
No, this was great just to catch up on all the games we've been playing, all the news. I know most likely this will probably be our last one for the year, but just looking forward to 2025 and seeing what it brings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you all have a good one. Stay tuned for next time. Nerd Alert episode 27 will come one day. Who knows? Okay, bye.
Bye.